You know that feeling. You're sitting at your desk, the deadline is, breathing down your neck, and you need to generate a brilliant summary or write a flawless block of code or maybe draft the perfect strategy memo.
Yeah, the pressure is totally on.
Right. So you turn to your favorite AI tool, you type in a few prompts, and in seconds, boom, there it is.
Just like magic.
Exactly. It's articulate, it's comprehensive, it's elegant. You read it over and you think, wow, I'm a genius.
You really do feel incredibly smart in that moment, right?
You do. But here is the really uncomfortable question we are exploring today. Are you actually getting smarter, or are you just experiencing a very convincing cognitive illusion?
It's a profound question, honestly, and it's one that has suddenly positioned itself right at the very center of how we work, how we learn, and really how we value human intellect.
Okay, let's unpack this. I was diving into some fascinating research by Dr. Jonathan H. Westover from 2026. It's titled The LLM Fallacy, Navigating the Illusion of AI Competence.
Oh, that's a brilliant piece.
Yeah, it really is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out why we so systematically mistake AI-generated brilliance
Yeah.
for our own, independent competence.
Right, the self-deception part.
Exactly. We need to look at how this illusion is completely breaking the way companies evaluate performance and ultimately how you can actually build real, durable expertise in a world where AI is, well, constantly buffering your edges.
Buffering is a great way to put it.
So just how deep does this rabbit hole go?
Well, it goes all the way down to the structural foundation of knowledge work. We really need to strip away the idea that this is just a new productivity tool that makes us type faster or brainstorm better.
It's much bigger than that.
Oh, yeah. What we are facing right now is a fundamental measurement problem. Historically, if you produced a highly sophisticated market forecast or a brilliant piece of software architecture, the assumption was always that the physical output reflected your internal mental capability.
Right, like you made the complex thing, therefore you deeply understand how the complex thing works.
Precisely. But today, that boundary between human contribution and machine contribution it's essentially vanished.
Because the outputs we are producing right now genuinely approximate or even exceed human-level performance. But the human sitting behind the keyboard might not actually grasp the underlying concepts at all.
That's the core issue. And the stakes here are massive because our entire organizational world, how we hire people, how we promote them, how we credential them, it's entirely built on the assumption that observable output equals underlying competence.
And if that assumption is broken, we have to figure out why we are so easily fooled in the first place, right?
We do.
Which brings up a concept in the research called the LLM fallacy. They describe it as a metacognitive failure where we misattribute AI-assisted outputs as our own capability.
Yeah, that's a really crucial definition to understand.
Before we go further, let's break that down. A metacognitive failure, meaning it's a glitch in how our brain thinks about its own thinking.
Exactly.
We look at the output and genuinely trick ourselves into believing we possess the skill that created it.
That is exactly what is happening. It isn't just about the AI hallucinating or making a factual mistake. This is a failure of human self-perception.
Wow.
And it happens because of a perfect storm of four interaction properties. First, there is what the researchers call interaction seamlessness.
Meaning how easy it is to use.
Right. Think about how incredibly low friction it is to use these tools. You throw in a fragmented, half-baked thought, and the system instantly hands you back a polished masterpiece. The friction of the struggle is completely gone.
So because there's no friction, we don't feel the weight of using a tool. It just feels like an extension of our own brain.
Exactly. And then there is the second factor, which is output fluency. The grammar is perfect, the style is consistent, the contextual tone is exactly right.
Okay, hold on. You're telling me that perfectly good grammar actually hijacks my brain's BS detector? Like, how does that work mechanically?
Well, what's fascinating here is that human brains naturally use fluency as a metacognitive shortcut, like a heuristic.
Okay, a shortcut.
Yeah. When we read a piece of text or review code and it flows beautifully without any awkward phrasing or structural clunkiness, our brain experiences cognitive ease.
And we like cognitive ease.
We love it. We naturally associate that ease with truth and, more importantly, with competence. The perfect grammar and fluency of an LLM actively bypass our normal critical evaluation checks.
So it sneaks right past the guards.
Exactly. When something sounds that confident and coherent, our internal alarms get completely suppressed.
So we see the pretty packaging and just automatically assume we baked the cake inside. That's wild.
It is wild, and that leads directly to the third factor, which is attribution ambiguity.
Attribution ambiguity. You mean who gets the credit?
Right. Because you are the one who prompted the AI, and maybe you tweaked a few adjectives or moved a paragraph around. You feel like you co-constructed it.
Oh, I do this all the time.
We all do. The lines blur entirely between your initial simple prompt and the system's massive underlying knowledge base.
I can see that. You feel like a director guiding an actor, so you take credit for the performance.
That's a great way to look at it.
But there was a fourth factor too, right? Pipeline opacity.
Yes, pipeline opacity. You do not see the AI retrieving data. You don't see it synthesizing information, testing probabilities, or reasoning through the logic.
Right, it's just a black box.
Exactly. You just see the pristine final product.
Because we don't see the messy math happening behind the screen.
Right.
We just get the shiny final product, so our brain assumes we must have willed it into existence.
Which is very dangerous.
Which is so fundamentally different from a tool like, say, a calculator. When I use a calculator, I know the calculator did the math. I don't suddenly think I can do complex trigonometry in my head.
No, you're perfectly aware of your own limits there.
Right. But this is different. It changes how we view ourselves. It makes me think of an analogy, actually.
Well, let's hear it.
It's like using a GPS every day to drive home. You arrive perfectly, taking all the fastest routes, completely avoiding traffic, so you feel like this incredible master navigator.
Yeah, you feel like a local expert.
But the day your phone dies, you're sitting at an intersection, and you realize you have absolutely no idea what your own neighborhood looks like.
That is a brilliant way to visualize it. We mistake the ability to operate the GPS for the ability to actually navigate.
But I mean, if I'm fooling myself into thinking I'm a master navigator, how on earth is my boss supposed to know if I'm actually good at my job?
They can't.
Right. If we can't accurately assess our own competence, it becomes mathematically impossible for managers, teachers, or clients to assess it just by looking at our final work product.
Which is how this shifts from a quirky personal psychology problem into a massive systemic organizational crisis.
That's a huge deal.
It really is. The interpretability of our work is just gone.
Right.
Portfolios, take-home tests, writing samples, they're all suddenly unreliable narrators. They are completely compromised as standalone metrics. And the data bears this out dramatically. Consider a recent study that looked at customer service representatives. Generative AI significantly improved their productivity, especially for the lower skill workers.
Okay, that sounds like a win.
It does, right. But the catch was, those performance gains completely vanished the moment the AI was removed.
So there was no real skill transfer at all. The workers didn't actually get better at resolving customer issues. They just had a better co-pilot feeding them the answers.
Exactly. And we see the exact same phenomenon in software development. Research looking at developers showed that they are generating huge volumes of code using these tools.
Shipping faster than ever.
Yes, but they don't actually understand the architecture of what they are deploying. They are introducing these latent errors bugs hidden incredibly deep in the structure that only someone with deep, unaided domain expertise could ever catch.
Okay, let me play devil's advocate for a second here.
Go for it.
If I'm a business owner and the final client presentation looks absolutely amazing and wins the account, or the code runs smoothly and ships on time, why does it matter who or what did the heavy lifting? Isn't business ultimately just about the output?
It is the exact question many executives are wrestling with right now. I mean, it sounds logical on the surface.
Right.
But the answer comes down to risk management and what psychologists call competence misalignment.
Okay, meaning you're more confident than you are competent.
Precisely. When that developer generates code with an AI, the LLM fallacy makes them highly confident in their output. But because their actual underlying competence hasn't increased, their vigilance drops off a cliff.
Oh, they stop paying attention.
They don't rigorously check for edge case errors. They just assume the AI's embedded assumptions are correct.
Oh, wow. I see where this is going.
Right. Now, imagine that code is running a high-frequency financial trading system, or managing patient healthcare records, or steering an autonomous vehicle.
High-stakes environments.
Very high stakes. When a crisis hits a situation requiring real-time, nuanced adaptation that the AI was never trained for, the system fails. And the human operator, who only knows how to pump the system, lacks the foundational expertise to intervene and fix it.
So when the stakes are low and everything is routine, output is fine. But when the stakes are high and the system breaks, you desperately need the underlying competence that the AI just robbed you of.
Yes. You are essentially hollowing out your organizational resilience in exchange for short-term output speed.
Which makes me wonder, if confidence is artificially high but actual skills are eroding, what happens to the social fabric of a team?
It's a really concerning area.
Yeah, because we aren't just talking about latent bugs in software anymore. We're talking about the intellectual structure of an entire workplace. There's a term researchers have been exploring called the AI ghostwriter effect.
Yes, the ghostwriter effect.
It describes this weird dissonance where people declare social authorship of a document. They put their name on the byline, they present it in the big meeting, but internally they don't feel cognitive ownership of it.
That dissonance creates a profound professional dissociation. It leads to what researchers call competence doubt.
Competence doubt.
You start to feel like an imposter in your own career because you don't actually know where the machine's brain ends and yours begins.
That sounds incredibly stressful.
It is. And this is tied directly to the illusion of understanding. When you achieve instant fluency through an AI interaction, you skip the productive struggle.
The productive struggle.
Right. And research by cognitive scientists shows that this productive struggle is a non-negotiable biological requirement for deep learning and knowledge consolidation. If you do not wrestle with the problem, you do not internalize the knowledge.
Wait a minute. If I skip that struggle and my whole career is scaffolded by AI, how do I ever mentor the new guy? Here's where it gets really interesting.
Let's hear it.
Let's play this out over a 5-year timeline. Say you have a junior employee who uses AI constantly. They generate brilliant outputs, they hit all their KPIs, they look like a rock star, and management promotes them.
A very realistic scenario.
Right. Now they're a senior manager tasked with training the next batch of junior employees. But they have nothing to pass down.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, what you are describing is the exact mechanism that causes team structures to fracture.
Because the knowledge isn't really there.
Exactly. To mentor someone, to explain the subtle nuances of a complex problem, to guide a junior colleague through alternative pathways when Plan A fails, you have to possess internalized knowledge.
You need that deep well to draw from.
You need a robust internal mental model built through years of your own productive struggle. Experts refer to this as creating structural holes in teams. The actual knowledge network of the organization physically breaks down. And for that individual employee, they face severe economic vulnerability. If the labor market suddenly shifts, say, organizations start demanding real-time, unaided strategic thinking. Or maybe AI tools face regulatory restrictions that employees' value drops to zero overnight.
They are completely exposed. It's like Warren Buffett says, only when the tide goes out do you discover who's been swimming naked.
Right.
Cognitively speaking, of course. So if the traditional ladder of mentorship is broken, take-home evaluation tests are useless, and our self-perception is skewed, organizations must be panicking.
Oh, they're actively recalibrating.
How are companies actually measuring who knows what? Because the old yardstick is clearly broken.
The overarching theme of how top firms are surviving this is a massive shift toward process visibility.
Process visibility.
We can no longer just look at the final output. We have to evaluate the journey of how it was created. Look at what Microsoft has experimented with in their engineering team.
What are they doing?
They're using code annotation practices where engineers explicitly flag the AI-generated sections of their code.
I'm trying to wrap my head around that. Is that to, penalize the engineers for using AI?
Not at all, actually. It clarifies the boundary. It removes the stigma of using the tool. But more importantly, it separates true, novel, human problem-solving from what is essentially just good AI orchestration.
Oh, that makes so much sense. It's forcing the worker to be metacognitively aware of what they actually did versus what the machine did. What about hiring?
Hiring is seeing a radical transformation. Goldman Sachs, for example, took a totally new approach with their analyst hiring.
Okay, I'm curious.
They still give candidates a take-home financial modeling exercise, and they fully expect the candidates will use AI to help build it.
Which is just realistic.
Exactly. But the final output isn't what gets them the job. The candidate must then sit in a room and do a live, real-time case discussion about that model.
Oh, wow.
They have to defend their underlying financial acumen, explain their trade-offs, and adjust variables on the fly entirely without the safety net.
It's like an open book math test. The teacher doesn't actually care if you got the right answer at the bottom of the page. The calculator or the AI can do that in a millisecond.
Right, they want the reasoning.
They want you to show your work and explain the formula.
Yeah.
They're evaluating the process. I saw that Stripe is doing something similar with their engineering teams, right?
Yes, Stripe developed competency matrices that deliberately delink code production, the raw volume of code, which is easily augmented by AI from architectural reasoning and novel problem formulation.
So volume doesn't equal promotion anymore.
You simply do not get promoted just for shipping a lot of code anymore. You get promoted for your technical judgment in ambiguous situations.
Which makes perfect sense.
Design thinking consultancies are doing the same thing with portfolio reviews. The interview is no longer about showing a beautiful final design. It is entirely about explaining your trade-offs.
Like, why did you choose this specific path over the other three? What were the constraints?
Exactly. This raises an important question about how organizations balance these two very different skill sets. Banning AI is completely unrealistic and a massive competitive disadvantage.
Yeah, nobody is going backward.
The goal is to calibrate AI literacy, knowing how to extract value from the tool with metacognitive awareness, which is knowing the limits of your own unaided skills.
Okay, if my company is going to start evaluating my process instead of just my output, I need to fundamentally change how I build my own skills on a Tuesday afternoon.
You really do.
We need a new blueprint so that you, listening right now, don't get left behind in this transition. And I was reading some research on the extended mind. The idea is that competence is no longer just what's inside your skull. It's a distributed system.
That's a great framework for it. The modern worker's competence is really a triad. Organizations need to recognize three distinct dimensions of skill.
Okay, what's the first one?
First, there is core human judgment. This is your strategy, your contextual interpretation, your ethical decision-making, your ability to read the room. AI is terrible at this.
So that's the human anchor.
Exactly. Second, there is augmentable execution. This is the implementation, the drafting, the raw coding. AI is incredibly powerful here.
Okay, the muscle work.
Right. And third, there is human AI orchestration. This is the meta skill of knowing exactly when and how to deploy the AI, and crucially, how to validate its outputs.
So how does a company actually build that triad? It can't just be good luck, figure it out.
It can't, and companies are restructuring career paths around this. You might advance specifically as an orchestration leader because you are a genius at managing AI workflows.
Like a conductor.
Yes. Or you advance as a strategic judgment expert because your human reasoning is bulletproof. Tools are also evolving to build capability rather than dependency.
Like how?
Look at Duolingo. They use an AI tutor that provides heavy scaffolding at first, but then deliberately and gradually fades that assistance away.
It forces the learner to take the training wheels off.
Exactly. BCG is conducting AI integration reviews where teams openly discuss where they are over-relying on the tool, creating peer accountability. They even schedule deliberate AI-free, unplugged strategy sessions.
Okay, but practically speaking, put yourself in the shoes of the listener right now. I'm at my desk, my inbox is overflowing, my deadlines are incredibly tight.
The reality of modern work.
Yeah, and the shiny, perfect AI tab is literally one click away, and my boss wants this report by 5 p.m. How do I force myself into the productive struggle when the easy way out is right there?
This is exactly why it cannot just be an individual effort. The organization has to step up. You look at companies like Anthropic, an AI company itself, which has very transparent cultural norms around when AI use is expected and when human-only judgment is absolutely required.
So the culture has to support the struggle.
Organizations must protect spaces for effortful practice, but on an individual level, you have to start treating your brain like an elite muscle.
Okay, brain is a muscle.
You wouldn't expect to run a marathon if you drove a golf cart for all your training runs. You have to deliberately schedule development-focused tasks.
What does that look like in practice?
Pick one task a week where AI is explicitly off limits. The output will take longer, and it might even be slightly less polished in the short term, but you are preserving your core human judgment and building that essential internal mental model.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive looking at that magical, frictionless feeling of generating flawless work in seconds. But the LLM fallacy reveals that this interaction is quietly tricking our brains.
It's a very subtle trick.
It's making us feel smarter while simultaneously eroding our foundational skills. The seamlessness and fluency of AI are blinding us to the fact that we are outsourcing the very productive struggle that makes us experts in the first place.
You're losing the workout.
Exactly. And if you don't deliberately practice without your AI safety net, if you don't force yourself to navigate the neighborhood without the GPS, your actual unaided expertise might be atrophying behind a wall of beautiful system-generated outputs.
That is the core risk we all face. The highly polished output masks the internal cognitive deficit.
So here is a challenge for you, the listener. Think about the last major project you completed at work, the last strategy memo, the last pitch deck, the last code base.
A really good thought experiment.
If you were pulled into a room right now, stripped of your internet connection and your AI tools, and asked to defend every single granular decision, every trade-off, and every assumption in that project, could you do it? Can you show your work?
And I'll leave you with one final, lingering thought to mull over. We've talked deeply about what happens to us, to our generation, if we outsource our productive struggle to AI. We erode our own skills.
Right.
But think even further ahead. Imagine a future where the next generation of AI systems, the ones currently in development, are trained exclusively on the outputs we are producing today. Outputs that look highly polished, perfectly fluent, but are completely devoid of the underlying messy, effortful human reasoning that historically drove true innovation. If we lose the ability to generate original insights derived from human struggle, what exactly will the machines of tomorrow learn from?
A truly terrifying and vital question to ponder. Thank you so much for joining us for this deep dive into the illusion of AI competence. Keep wrestling with those hard problems, keep protecting your productive struggle, and keep digging deep.
Thanks for listening. We'll catch you next time.